Hello and welcome to a very special edition of Backchat this week from the Arc in Headingley. Normally a programme about opinions. Today we have two of the game's most influential opinion formers. Gary Hetherington, the Chief Executive of Leeds, and sitting alongside him, the owner and chairman of Wigan, Ian Lenigan. We were hoping to be joined today by Marwan Kukash of Salford, but unfortunately he pulled out 3 hours before the programme because he wasn't feeling too good. So hope you're feeling better soon, Marwan. But we've got Gary Schofield as a late substitute, just as he was in the 1985 Challenge Cup final. Let's hope he has a bit more influence on today's proceedings than he did on that occasion. Gentlemen, let's start off on a global theme, shall we? We're seeing at the moment Jarryd Hayne making a real splash in the NFL. We're seeing Sam Burgess as possibly the most talked about rugby union player at the moment. Ex-rugby league players who have to change codes to get some kind of profile. What's the game doing wrong here? Why is rugby league not getting that profile?
I think rugby league has got to decide once and for all whether or not it's a national game or a Heartlands game. That's almost a perennial question that's asked, and unless we get the right perspective of our own game, whether you're talking clubs, players, the RFL, the leagues, whatever they are, we've got to realise that we've got to play on a national stage. And I'm for one believe that the reason that our athletes, superb athletes of the Sam Burgess variety, are really good athletes, but unless we project ourselves as a national game properly, professionally, with the right profile, I don't think we will get that profile. If you look at an example of Martin Offiah, variously known now as the best known rugby league player, that's because Martin is a past master at publicity and marketing. It's a classic example of the fact that you have to be professional if you're going to be a national game. And I think the problem that we've got is the Sam Burgesses are being renowned now for all of their skills and talent. I mean, Stuart Lancaster's picking him because of the contribution that he makes to the side in athleticism, motivation, the whole aspect of what he is as a rugby league player. We know that, but we've got to promote that and market it on a national stage with a long-term strategy.
Gary?
Well, yes, I agree with all that, and of course it's a compliment to the ability and the athleticism of rugby league players that other sports can see their attraction. I mean, Jarryd Hayne is an interesting one, and we've yet to play a game yet, but it'd be interesting to see how he goes at that sport. Sam Burgess, yes, in many ways following a similar path to Sonny Bill Williams, who of course was a rugby league player, went into rugby union very successfully, came back to rugby league and has realised that it's a short career and he wants to do as much as he can with it. And so I think it's a sign of the times really, and such is the appeal of international and world-class sport. So yeah, I take it as a real compliment to the game, but also a warning that yes, these players are not protected species. We as a game need to do more to retain our top talent.
Yeah, you never had the chance to play rugby union because at the time you were playing, of course, you would have been banned from playing rugby union because that's the way the rules were at that stage. But it is heartbreaking, is it? When you see, we all knew how great Jason Robinson was. We all know how great Sam Burgess is. We all know what a superstar Jarryd Hayne is. That they have to go to another sport to get that international recognition.
Absolutely, and that's you mentioned it, and it's a profile. And Andy Farrell went for the same reason as well, because what our game does need, and I say globally, as we mentioned, is more international. We need a bigger and a far better international calendar. And if these players got that same profile, if you look at even Kyle Eastman, I know he's been left out of the England squad now, but if you look at the profile what he's got, Chris Hassan as well from there, it's that sort of profile and that sort of marketing that it attracts them to different sports, and until we realise the product what we've got, quite simply, is, if not better, than the other sports, and I'm afraid to say we are going to play second fiddle to other sports.
Is there a kickback for rugby league in that when Jarryd Hayne is playing in the NFL and they're making such an exciting fuss of him, that they actually say, where has this fella come from, and find out it's rugby league and therefore get more interested in rugby league? Or is that being over optimistic?
I think that's being optimistic, to be honest. I think American football is very good at publicising its own game. Particularly, you've got to look at what they do at Wembley and the fact they sell out Wembley twice a year very easily. We've got to operate on that sort of stage as a rugby league game. We are neither good at internationals, as Gary's just said. The international game, the Australians don't seem to rate particularly highly, but it's getting better now because of the World Club Series. But at the national level, you've only got to look at the value of the NRL and rugby league over there. If you look at the TV deal that they've just done, which is a 70% increase, and you're talking about $1.7 billion over a 5-year period, that's because it's a national game. So long as we are a Heartlands game, an M62 corridor game, a parochial game, because that's what we are, if we act in a parochial way, then it's not surprising that the press and the general populace look at us as a parochial game.
I think as well, again, if you look at it, and I know we're going to take a game on the road down to Millwall in a couple of weeks' time, but if you looked at the success of the Magic Weekend up in Newcastle, and I mentioned it then, you know, why not, when Four Nations come over here, announce that we're going to take a double header up to there, and again, that's spreading the game, that's marketed the game proper there, and the profile, what the game is looking for, and I say we just seem a little bit slow in the product what we've got in making it the game what it should be.
Yeah. Is there sorry, Gary, you were
I was going to say to Ian, how do you achieve that, Ian? I mean, I think it's, you know, that vision is absolutely what I would certainly subscribe to. How do you achieve it?
Leeds, like Wigan, have always been supporters of the national game concept and of France and various other things. So whilst we, on the field, compete head-to-head with each other, and we're very envious of the fact that they're at Wembley this week and we are not there. You know, Millwall isn't a compensation from being at Wembley. But if you actually look at what should we be doing, we should have a 5-year strategic plan where we measure what's the profile of the game. You can do that every year with surveys, easily, professionally. How much income are we getting from central sponsorship? What are our attendances and what are our TV attendances? And more particularly, what is the participation of rugby league? Let's not ignore the fact that Sport England have said rugby league is one of the failing sports in terms of participation this year. We've had our grant cut because we are not getting the participation. We have to get those 5 measures right. And it's easy for us objectively to measure that by having a long-term strategy, not this perennial crossroads of do we be national or do we be Heartlands? We can do both and do it well.
But where does the responsibility lie? That's the interesting debate for me. And clearly the governing body have got part of the responsibility, but for me, it lies really with the clubs. You know, we've got, is it 36 professional, semi-professional clubs, and the real challenge for each and every one of us is to grow, to significant growth, because growth in our own businesses, more fans, more corporate support, better player development schemes. The real growth in our individual businesses, that will actually be a real catalyst to the sort of vision, creating the sort of vision that Ian's talking about.
You get the impression from an outside point of view, looking in, that there are clubs that are doing it, and probably most people would applaud your 2 clubs as being very professionally run and doing that. But within the Super League, you have a big disparity between maybe the top 3, 4, 5 clubs. Yeah. And the bottom 3, 4, 5 clubs. Is that the case? I
think right throughout the game, and you know, I sort of look at all the clubs as an entity, all 3 divisions, and say where is the growth? You know, who is growing their fan base, and all the sort of indicators that we're looking for. And there's not enough growth, and that's the biggest challenge, I believe. And that responsibility lies firmly with the clubs themselves.
Is there an over-reliance on survival, i.e. on the playing field in Super League? Is there an over-reliance on clubs like Wakefield who've got so much pressure on survival that they can't think about growth?
You can see now with the number of signings that were made just before the deadline for the challenged for Super League clubs to strengthen their squad, and it was reminiscent of what used to happen before the quota system came in. I think we've got to deal with that as an issue. But there's probably a view that says, I sit with the Super League view that says Super League, like the Premier League, is the premier part of our game. And whilst the Championship clubs and Championship 1 are important, we have to concentrate, I believe, even more of our resources on promoting the game nationally. That's primarily through Super League, but the new structure and the middle eights and the rest of it, I think, has worked quite well in the Heartlands, but I don't think it's appreciated outside of the M62 corridor. I think we could use the extra money that we've got to promote the national game, and that's what I think we should be doing more and more, and that needs substantial sums to do it, for which we've got to increase attendances, as Gary says, but that's very difficult. You know, it's very difficult growing attendances in your home base. And if you look at the Super 8s at the moment, and I'm sure we'll be going on to talk about that, one of the concerns about the first 3 weeks are the attendances.
Yeah.
Particularly the attendances of the big clubs. Television audiences, on the other hand, are higher. So it's worked from a TV viewpoint, but we don't get any extra income from that.
Just going back on Ian's point there, is the game's strength, a perennial weakness, i.e. the family of rugby league, that we are maybe too preoccupied of looking after the whole family, when we should be actually saying, let's concentrate on the top clubs, give them the money and the funding, and then you'll get the drop down of cash to the smaller clubs. Gary?
Well, you'll have a big debate there, won't you? Because everybody, when you look at the way the governing body is, you know, every club has a representative there, don't they? So I think you'll have quite a bit of disagreement from the little clubs to the bigger clubs, because I think overall everybody has a vote, Gary, is that right? And they can have quite a big influence on how the money should be shared.
Yeah, we've had breakaways before. Is there any kind of mood of a breakaway at the moment?
Yeah, but in truth, that's actually not how it works. You know, Super League is an entity in itself in many ways and controls its own TV contract. But you know, I think, you know, the concept of the Super 8s and the restructuring of the competitions was a game-wide solution. And it was to actually strengthen both Super League, the Championship, give entry and exit from the Super League. I think it's got the capability of achieving all that. But you know, we come back to we can sort of fight and squabble about the money that's available now. The real challenge is to create a lot more. And then of course we can't spend what we've not got. We've got to create a lot more wealth in the game, a lot more income, and then work out how best that.
But there are only really 3 things that you can do with income. I think there's the television deal, there's attendances, and there's sponsorship. Those are the only 3 places. Community sponsorship as well. And community sponsorship has become very strong. It's very difficult to grow the attendances, as we've proven over the last 10 years. The big games get better generally, but that's not happened, for example, in the Super 8s. But it did earlier in the year, for example. If you look at Wigan against Leeds, earlier in the year, very strong attendances, and the previous year. But for some reason, the recent game, Wigan against Leeds, and they're always televised, Wigan and Leeds games, 3,000 down, compared with 18,000 last year and 17,000 in the regular season. So attendances are not that easy to grow.
Why do you think that is? I mean, when you see those...
Because we don't work hard enough.
Right.
Primarily, we don't, as individual clubs, we don't work hard enough, and we're not well enough resourced. That's the. I believe, and I disagree with you. I think you can grow attendances. We all agree we've got a great spectacle, we've got a great product. Facilities are so much better than they ever used to be. We've actually got we're well priced, we're family priced. That's not an issue. We just don't work hard enough. We don't work hard enough. We don't work smart enough. We don't have enough resource.
Wigan have an excellent marketing director with long-term experience of marketing and growing attendances, and we're good at doing it. But if you take a town as opposed to a city, the town of Wigan as opposed to the city of Leeds, it's a little bit more difficult. And we've got St Helens and Warrington and all the rest of it. It's not easy in that area. So one of the reasons that we've gone to London, for example, is to try to grow that base, to try to get more people. We are very professional as a club, and I think you were right of what you said about Leeds and Wigan, and there are others, you know, the St Helens of this world, and Warrington and a few others. Huddersfield try very, very hard, but cannot grow their attendances.
Yeah.
I don't know why, because they're professional people. So I personally believe that we need to focus even more on Super League, and I believe that we need to promote at the national level. More than anything, I think it's the profile of the game that's holding back our attendance. It's not what we do as a club.
Would you agree with that?
Certainly, in terms of the sort of national vision, absolutely. And you know, I commend Wigan's taking their game into London. I can see that it might not sit comfortable with their fans who have to travel to see that game. But I think, you know, that is an attempt to actually develop their profile. You know, it's not that they're going to get that many people from London travelling to Wigan's home games, but actually people following the club and becoming associated with the club. Yeah, we all need to actually raise the profile of our own brands, our own clubs, and I think Wigan attacking the London market is a good example. It's a drop in the ocean, of course, and it needs significant sort of publicity and promotion. I think we can take a leaf out of the book of the NFL. The NFL have brought their game to England. 10 years ago, it had a very, very minute following. Now it's a growing following. They can sell out major games at Wembley, and it's got a huge following. And they've done that by having a really professional, switched-on marketing campaign, and they've actually got off the backside and they've come to England. Yep. And now we're seeing that for the first time with the NRL as well. The Australian clubs, they're all big brands in Australia, but they're not recognised brands outside of Australia. So there's a realisation now that they actually need global exposure. The only way to do it is to actually bring their brand and their entourage to England and promote themselves. And that's why the World Club Challenge and the World Series is actually, that gives us an opportunity to globalise or improve the globalisation of our sport.
There is talk as well of them possibly playing a State of Origin game at some point in the next few years at Wembley Stadium, or a big showpiece NRL game, Souths against St George or something like that. Would that be good for the game over here?
I think it would be very good for the game. But the difference is they have the monies available because of their television deal, particularly the new one. And because they're becoming aware, through the World Club Series particularly, of the importance of the international dimension. And Gary was one of the lead people in promoting the whole World Club Challenge, World Series side of it. I think because of that, they're recognising the brand importance, the profile importance. It's not, I mean, people talk about Wigan taking a game all the way 200 miles to London. Yeah. You know, they take games 3,000 miles away. They play home games in New Zealand and in Perth and in all sorts of places. Yet we are even in a debate about whether or not we should play in London. It's almost laughable in terms of the profile and marketing of rugby league as a national game. Okay, well, we'll get stuck into more of the Super 8s and spreading the game in the next part of Back Chat. Join us in just a few moments' time.